Hello and welcome back. This evening I'm going to take a look at our second piece of reading in the class. It's the Gettysburg Address by Abraham Lincoln. I'll go through this a little bit quicker. And again, my intention here is just to give you guys an idea of what it looks like to annotate digitally and what kind of critical observations I'm looking for. And again, you don't have to find the same ones I find, but the attention to detail, as well as kind of, the analysis of why Lincoln, in this case, chose to do certain things. That's what I'm interested in. So let's get started. I'm going to choose the Smart Annotation. I have picked my my writing utensil. I'll pick a color, and let's get started. The first thing we always start with, again, is the title. The title doesn't give me too much information here. It does, however, give me the word Gettysburg, and if you're a student of American history, you recognize that this was perhaps the most critical battle in the American Civil War. The date here suggests also that the American Civil War is not actually over and that he's giving this address during the Civil War. So we can imagine that tensions are high all throughout the United States of America. And so, yeah, let's get started. Civil War time. All right. So he begins his speech, his famous speech, by saying 77 years ago. Now, if you're not familiar with this type of language, this is just a really fancy way of saying 87 years ago. So the question that we should all have is, why the heck would Lincoln start it this way? Why wouldn't he just say the more familiar 87 years ago? So if you're like me, you would ask that question, and then you would go to Google and you would start to look things up. And right away, it doesn't take long in your Google search to realize that this is a biblical allusion. It refers to a famous psalm. So right away, he's connecting his speech to the words of God, right? So he's adding a sense of credibility to his audience, who at that time especially would be very familiar with this type of language and with this allusion. They would recognize right away that he is speaking and using the language of God. The second allusion that we see here comes from the Declaration of Independence. And I think the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence, and that's all men are created equal. So right from the get-go, Lincoln chooses to use two allusions, and these allusions represent perhaps two of the most significant pieces of literature to the average American in 1863, and that is the Bible and the Declaration of Independence. So the big question we would have for ourselves here is why? Why these allusions? What's his purpose of connecting his words to the words of such essential documents in American history? The next thing that I notice here is, if I were to keep reading, it says, "Our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation." So we have this idea of fathers bringing forth something new. And then the next word is conceived. This is a word that we usually associate with childbirth, right? A child is conceived. And then even the word dedicated, when you consider these other word choices, the word dedicated too could be used when talking about a child. Usually early on in a child's life, the child is dedicated. In the American tradition, a child would be oftentimes baptized and dedicated to God. And so you have these four words here. When alone, they might not mean a lot, but again, we're always looking for patterns. And so when you have four of them so close together, it's giving us this idea of America being something like a child, okay? And we have the forefathers who have made this nation, they've conceived the nation, they've dedicated this nation, they've created this thing, and just like a child, right, it should be taken care of, it should be loved, it should be protected. And a child, by the way, is something worth fighting for, right? Even our pacifists parents would probably say that they would fight for their child. And so when we attach such significance to such an abstract thought as nationhood, it gives it, again, a sense of weightiness. The next thing, and the last thing that I'll kind of take note of here, is this all-inclusive pronoun, just like the pronoun we, which we see repeated over and over again. And I'm just kind of browsing here and picking out a few of these we's that he uses. And I know there's more, but I'll stop there. These are all interconnected and interrelated. Oops. Sorry. There we go. And I'm just going to kind of do a messy connection there. But this is a really common rhetorical strategy. By using the all-inclusive first-person pronoun we, Lincoln is making a strong connection with his audience, right? Notice it's not Lincoln's father in that first sentence. It's our father. We all share the same father, the forefathers of America. Therefore, we all have a common interest. We all have a common bond. And if I keep reading, some more here, right? With this we, right? We are engaged in a great civil war. It's not just, the South and the North are Lincoln and, the leaders of the South. It's all of us. We have a commonality. And so, again, I think he's doing this strategically when we look at the whole scheme of things here and we look at it kind of big picture. We're always trying to look at patterns. So those are the things that I notice in the first paragraph. The next thing that I would do is and I'll do it just for at least one of these here. The next thing I would try to do is I would try to put some thoughts down of mine. In my annotation, I note that it's a biblical allusion, and that's all well and good. But what I want to try to figure out and maybe make some inferences is why would he use the biblical allusion? What would be his purpose? So Lincoln references the Bible here. And let's see, Lincoln references, not he Bible, sorry. The Bible. I'm sorry about my typing here, it's kind of slow. Adds credibility, and I'll say uses the same language of God. And I'll even add a little rhetorical technique. He establishes ethos. Now, if you don't know what that is, you will soon enough. And again, this is not by any stretch a complete thought. What this is some notes that are going to kind of guide some of my research to come. I'm going to look up this allusion. I'm going to figure out exactly what psalm it comes from. I'm going to see what the psalm has to say. And then I'm going to maybe draw some more inferences. And then tomorrow I'll come to class with some more information to share with you guys. And that should be what you guys, likewise, are trying to do with your own annotations and with your own AP blog. You're looking for thoughtful commentary that will lead to research, that will lead to original ideas, and that will lead to a great discussion tomorrow. So if I was going to continue on with my homework, I would make comments on the four red annotations there, and then I would also make some sort of comment on the green annotations, the language of inclusion. And I would probably Google that. Why do people use we when they're giving speeches? What effect does that have on the audience? And then I would come to class tomorrow ready to share what I learned in my research. So hopefully maybe one of you guys could do that instead and come to class with something really thoughtful to say as it relates to those things. So that's it for tonight. Those are some of my thoughts on the opening of the Gettysburg Address, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. All right, see you tomorrow or in a couple days.